The Fanatec GT2 European Series makes its annual visit to Spa-Francorchamps this weekend. And look at this glorious sunshine. It's really hot. There's hardly a cloud in the sky, and the teams have enjoyed fantastic weather all weekend thus far. Two 50-minute races to come. The first of them is gridding up any moment. Track temperature 32 degrees centigrade, and with cockpit temperatures likely to be high as well, this is going to be a real test for some of the drivers. The cars making their way to the grid, and it is going to be Filip Sladecka's KTM on pole position. David Addison trackside as there the LP Racing Audi of Henri Hassid, the AM Championship leader, heads to the grid as well. One or two a little bit late on parade. The bulk of the grid is already there with Filip Sladecka's KTM starting on pole position. He's had a win this year. He is fourth in the championship, having not done every round. His co-driver Stefano Rossina is third. One car that's been off the road already, in fact. That's why it's late to the grid. Peter Gulinks, second in the championship, making his way quickly round to the grid to join the rest of them, ready for the rolling start, 50 minutes in prospect. So KTM and Audi share the front row of the grid. The KTMs, the KTM Crossbow GT2s, which are largely to be found in the AM class, not exclusively, but they're a good entry-level car for the AMs. Very, very quick, very light, and performance per pound. There's a lot to be said for them. So there is the true racing entry. For pole position, Filip Sladecka and Stefan Rossina are the drivers that share this car, with the pit window coming at the 20 to 30 minute mark. And it's an 82-second stop line to line, but then there are extra times to be served for the top three from the previous race at Misano. So Henri Hassid, for example, will get 10 seconds. Another of the true racing entries starting further back, Klaus Angerhofer and Hubert Trunkepolz's car gets 5 there. Peter Gulinks gets to the grid, and that car gets 5 seconds for being third at Misano. There are 10 seconds to the car that will start on the outside of the front row. There it is, Nicolas Seilens, and there are 7 for the pole car. Nicolas Seilens and Stinus Longin share this car. Stinus Longin's dad, Bert Longin, is to be found sharing the sister car with Peter Gulinks, a row back, and KTM versus Audi for the front of the grid. Oh, the championship divided into Pro-Am and AM. One of the really interesting cars is going to start at the back of the grid, because the time for this race was done by the AM, Michael Doppelmayr, but then it's going to be the very quick Elliot Earhart who will take over. And as we saw at Red Bull Ring when he did race 2 on his own, his pace absolutely mighty. So if Doppelmayr doesn't lose too much ground in the opening stint, Earhart really will be a driver to watch in the second stint of the race. There is 81 then. On the grid, Peter Gulinks, PK Carsport entered Audi R8 LMS GT2. We've got Porsche representation. You can see Leonardo Gorini's LP Racing car in the kind of Rothmans colours, and then behind it is the Brabham BT63 GT2, the car that had a win in Italy. Kevin Weider starts, and he shares, as ever, with Anders Fjordbach. Henri Hassid then soloist for LP Racing. Very experienced driver is Henri Hassid, as the grid now is being cleared, engines fire, and we get set for the rolling start. So the last few mechanics make sure that the cars are good to go. Doors are closed. The back row of the grid has Stefan Rattel, the genius behind GT2, GT3, GT4 and other races, and he will share the LP Racing Audi with the LP of LP Racing, Luca Piri, and alongside that car is number 18 of Michael Doppelmayr and Elliot Earhart, another LP Racing entry. So very shortly we can have the leading car, as it is, pull away, and then after a appropriate delay, the race cars can be released, and therefore by playing catch-up they get a bit of warmth into tyres and brakes as the race cars catch the official car at the front of the queue. So the race director gives the instruction that the cars can be released now. Away they go, and then the green flag flies. The formation lap underway. This the 4th event, this round 7 of the series, and the cars turn their way through La Source with not everybody having a co-driver. The bulk are double driver entries, but it's not a regulation that you have to have a second driver. There are provisions within the regulations for you to go solo, but that's largely in the AMs where you'll find that, as they're jinking side to side. is the pole car of Filip Sladecka, trying to get the warmth into the Pirelli tyres now. Filip Sladecka, who we've seen in the past in the FIA GT3 European Championship. And he shares that car with Stefan Rosina. On the outside of the front row, Nicolas Seilens sharing with Stinus Longchamp. On the second row, Peter Gulings and Henri Hassan. And then on the third row of the grid, you've got another of the KTMs, that of Chris Rosenberger. And alongside is Leonardo Gorini, who is, like Henri Hassan, one of the solo drivers within the entry. On the fourth row, Klaus Angerhofer sharing with Hubert Trunkenpolz and Kevin Wieder starting in the Brabham that's had a really up and down sort of a season. Big crash at Imola, but a win at Misano. Gianluca Giorgi comes next. He's had an AM win this year in the EB Motors Porsche. And Aurelius Rustica sharing with Michael Vergers next. A long way back, actually, so that could be another car to keep an eye to, with Stefan Rattel and Michael Doppelmayr sharing the back row of the grid. Now, another aspect to Spa, which is new, is the huge amount of gravel that now is around the circuit, because gravel beds have been brought in to play. You can see here coming out of Les Combes, lots of gravel. And all of this, and you'll see it again at Bruxelles in a moment, is because motorbike racing has returned to Spa. And so, although there the circuit looking a little bit gravelly, the gravel beds, not to stop people abusing track limits, but that is a byproduct, but it's to catch fallen motorbikes at key areas. And if you have a look in a moment to the left of the road, you'll see there the cones prevent you from going through the new part of circuit, which is the motorbike track, which is a corner within a corner down at Speakers Corner, the fast left at the bottom of the hill there down towards Pouhon. So Marshall sprint their way onto the track in the background just to do a bit more tidying. This is Pouhon, where again a gravel bed has been put in on the outside of the road. The track not changed, but barriers moved back in one or two places, gravel traps put in, so it does feel a little bit different. But it's interesting that we've had relatively few dramas with people going into the gravel, one or two, but you know, we always used to have incidents around Spa, and it has changed the way that people are driving, that is for certain. And over long races, if gravel is brought onto the circuit, then you're going to have to be mindful of tyre wear, that's for certain. Through the pit path, down to campus, they will turn, and then onto the Cours Paul Frère, heading up towards the rolling start. GT2 only in its second season, lots of different drivers and a number of manufacturers. Keep taking a look at all of this, and there's going to be a GT2 area in the paddock in the build-up to next week's Spa 24 hours, the Total Energies 24 hours of Spa. So a number of the teams staying on to show the cars, to try and appeal to new customers, because with a really good calendar, 2 races, lots of track time, some good venues, it's a championship with a lot going for it, and user-friendly cars for the AMs. And we've had some very good racing this year as well, so it just needs another half a dozen or so, and then I think the momentum will really come, and it will grow and grow and grow. The KTM then on pole position, that of Filip Sladecka, starting with the red-fronted Audi of Nicolas Seilens for company. The yellow-nosed car is that of Peter Gulings. That car had big mechanical dramas in the equivalent races last year, but limped home for points. Anders Fjordbach, who last year was the Pro-Am champion with Mark Patterson. Well, Mark not racing this year, so a different co-driver for Anders Fjordbach. That's Kevin Wieder, different car as well, the Brabham, the BT63 Concept GT2 entry. So up they come to the approach of the chicane. Can't really call it the bus stop anymore, because it is very much purely a right-left, unlike the old days of the bus stop chicane that Gordon Spicer christened. But now the leading car indicates that it's going to pull off the road before the chicane, and it will park there just in case it is needed for any dramas at the start of the race. So the leading car will dive to one side in a moment, let everybody through, and then oh, in fact, the leading car comes to the pit lane. For British GT, it's going to stop before but the bus stop, but a different way of employing it for GT2. Race 1 then of Fanatec GT2 European Series gets underway now as the lights are changed. We go racing down towards La Source, and a good start by Sladecka puts him into the lead then, with Nicolas Seilens taking second place up the inside line. Dives Peter Gulings, and the two teammates then collide. There's a bit of rubbing. Gulings goes through. Debris flies. That was a bit robust from Peter Gulings, and he's gone through as the cars now storm downhill for the first time past the endurance pits. Another good getaway also there, look, by the Porsche, going now into 5th place. Leonardo Gorini as they come through Eau Rouge and up Radion, and Kevin Wieder in the Brabham right round the outside there. That was brave stuff. Kevin, who's been racing in historic single-seaters this year at the Monaco Historic Grand Prix, for example, getting back into modern machinery, coming up towards Les Cons for the first time. So it is Sladecka's KTM in the lead. Gulinx is second, and on his toes up the inside line there. Look, Chris Rosenberger, and he goes through, puts himself up ahead of Nicholas Salins, but then he rattles it wide over the curb, and if you go wide on the exit, you find all of that gravel. But for the moment, hanging on to the place then is Chris Rosenberger. So it's KTM, Audi, then Porsche, then Audi as they come now down towards Bruxelles for the first time. Number 11 there, Nicholas Salins trying to fight back, trying to get a gap on the inside line, but to no avail as they come downhill, heading now towards Speaker's Corner into turn 9. Porsche versus Audi there. Leonardo Guarini coming under attack, look, from Henri Hassan as they drop down towards Pont this time. Through that long, fast, looping left-hander. Number 17 KTM, that's the Klaus Angerhofer started, Hubert Trunkenpol's shared car, and up towards Piff Paff for the first time they come with the race leader, Filip Sladecka, getting away as he needs to do. He's got to pull out at least 7 seconds to preserve the position. That's what he's got to serve as the extra pit stop penalty time as the cars now come down towards campus. Into the right, and again, there's a big gravel bed on the outside there, which was catching out people yesterday. Through the Cours Paul Frere, forget all that run-off tarmac, gravel, arms outstretched awaits. There's the run-off tarmac coming out of the corner, and there, hustling on, is number 16 then, the car in the hands of Chris Rosenberger, running in third place. It is Filip Sladecka, though, that leads at the end of lap 1 as they come out of Blanchimont, where track limits are very carefully policed this weekend, and towards the chicane. Turn right, and then swing left. Slight climb midway through the chicane as an effort is made on the inside line there by Nicholas Salins, but to no avail. Door closed well in anticipation by Chris Rosenberger as they come over the timing line. 1 lap in the book then. So the leading KTM goes through with an advantage of, get this, 2.7 seconds at the end of the opening lap alone. Gulinx is second, Rosenberger is third, Salins is fourth, Guarini there fifth, Hassan is sixth, and seventh. The Brabham look on the inside line there. Kevin Weider goes through. So the experienced American driver goes up into 7th place. Klaus Angerhofer is 8th. 9th is Gianluca Giorgi. And 10th is Aurelius Rustica in the high-class racing Audi. Not really making the progress you might have anticipated. Lots of dust being kicked up there through Eau Rouge as people have explored all of the real estate and brought dirt onto the racetrack. But right now, Sladecka is leading the way, and he's also building that gap by being quicker than anybody within the first sector. He's just pulled another 6/10 alone in sector 1. KTM looking absolutely mighty in his hands as there to the inside line. The sister car of Klaus Angerhofer lines up to have a go at the Brabham. Contact thankfully avoided, and Kevin Weider was able just to hang on to the place. The Brabham makes this fantastic noise. It howls down the hill. And Kevin Weider, victorious at Misano, had a wheel part company with the car in free practice on Friday, but yesterday in qualifying all good as the car now drops downhill once more. And Kevin Weider picking up pace then as he gets happier with the stint, gets the feel of the car, the tyres and how it's all putting together. Second stint, of course, Anders Fjordbach, who we know is a very quick driver indeed. Down to the Piff Paff as you see Nicholas Salins out. They have a bit of a twitch there. Get the feeling, given that he lost places off the start, that he's not entirely happy with that car for whatever reason. Peter Gulinx had actually dropped off the road on his way to the grid, so he's got that out of his system, and he is now very definitely taking the battle to the race leader as best he can. He's improving his sector times, but the trouble is so is Sladecka. What he's got to do is keep at bay Chris Rosenberger. Now that Audi will serve an extra 5 seconds in the pits, whereas the car that's doing the race leading has to serve 7, and the car that currently is 4th has to serve an extra 10, all in the Pro-Am class for being the top 3 last time out at Misano. So in a sense it's advantage to 81 because it's got less time to serve against those it's fighting with in the pit stops. Number 16, Chris Rosenberger, still running in 3rd place in his KTM. That's the leading AM entry. So for the moment, we can sort of discount that from the Pro-Am contest. And not only that, but it doesn't have to serve any pit stop time. So the ultimate result for number 16 KTM is going to be very interesting indeed as the cars now turn through La Source once more. Battle is on here. Aurelius Rustica just ahead of Stefan Rattel as they come up towards La Source. The 2 Audis absolutely together. Aurelius Rustica who's come close to victories this year, but also had that big damage down at Red Bull Ring in the first race. Stefan, who raced the Mercedes there, back behind the wheel here of an Audi as he drops downhill once more. But Rustiger getting away at that section of the circuit. Uphill they climb. So the high-class racing Audi ahead of the LP racing car of Stefan Rattel's Italian next-door neighbour Luca Piri. A look to the inside line there, look from Gianluca Giorgi's Ebi Motors Porsche. Pseudo Martini colours are looking ever more pseudo now. Number 17 goes through. That's Klaus Angerhofer getting back onto the tail through the twiddly bits of the Brabham. Kevin Weider has to try to fend him off to the inside line. Looks Angerhofer, but not able to find a way through there. So he turns now out of Bruxelles. Drop downhill once more. The Brabham hangs on to that 7th spot as the cars accelerate their way down towards turn 9. Through Pouhon they come, and there, now under attack, is Rosenberger because he's got right on his tail Nicholas Salins. So the Audi has brought down that gap. Again, they're using lots of curb, but Nicholas Salins perhaps now, as the stint wears on, getting a little bit more comfortable, a little bit happier within that car. Looks to the inside line. In fairness, Rosenberger gives him racing room. This isn't really his battle to have because they're in different classes. Yes, it's for 3rd place overall, but you score points in class not outright. Rosenberger could afford to let him go and still have a comfortable class lead over the Leonardo Gorini Porsche, but fend off the Audi he does. Out of Blanchimont then this time. We're currently on lap 3. Fastest lap, not surprising, done by Filip Sladecka last time around. So the leading KTM, very nearly 6 seconds to the good. Filip Sladecka, who was brought into that car at the Red Bull Ring. And Sedi Salmini has been switching cars as well over the course of the season. So different driver combinations through KTM, all of which tried to deliver good results. But Sladecka, Super Trofeo racer, GT racer, TCR racer, drops downhill out of La Source once more as the leader of this with 7.5 seconds, give or take, now in hand. Chris Rosenberger still runs 3rd, the AM class leader, and has now shaken off Nicholas Salins. So despite the fact they were half a lap back, very close indeed together. Now that gap has widened between the two, as up front we've got Peter Gulinks 2nd, getting away from their Rosenberger behind him. But of course, way out up front is Filip Sladecka, who is making life look very, very easy indeed here. Out of Bruxelles goes the Porsche, and here Leonardo Gorini, 2nd in class, keeping at bay Henri Hassid. Now Gorini, no extra time to serve in the pits because he wasn't in the top 3 last time out at Misano. We're getting the first track limit warnings coming for Peter Gulinks, also now for Stefan Rattel, for Leonardo Gorini, and it's all coming at turn 17. It's all coming at Blanchimont, which was being very carefully monitored yesterday. There is Gorini under attack then. Kevin Weider has got himself right onto the tail of the Porsche. He's shaken off the KTM behind, and so Kevin Weider is another driver here, look, getting quicker and quicker and quicker as the stint goes on. 40 minutes of the race to go, which means 10 before we need to think about the window opening. But Gorini now is on the attack. This is an AM car. Oh, sorry, I tell you a lie, it's not the Brabham, is it? It is Henri Hassid, who is behind him in number 67 Audi in a similar colour scheme. So Kevin Weider is next in the queue, trying to shake off Angerhofer. Henri Hassid taking the fight to Gorini, and they are 2nd and 3rd within the AMs. And you can see the way that the Porsche starts to pull away again, coming through this section. Out of Blanchimont, the gap widens as they come down to the chicane once again. Right, so Henri Hassid, who has won outright this year, who has taken 3 AM class wins, very much the man to beat in the category, heads the championship there, comes over the timing line now, still hustling on behind Gorini, and as they go down towards La Source, he's not close enough to make a move. Another fastest lap of the race just posted by the overall leader, Filip Sladecka. And there is the man in charge. So Sladecka now 10 seconds to the good. Remember, the car has to serve an extra 7 when it gets to the pit window, and there is in second place Peter Goulding. So that's giving you an idea of the margin between the two race leaders. There is Goulding. Despite his rather robust start to the race, it did work for him, because there he is in that second place. Chris Rosenberger hanging on to the AM lead ahead then of Nicholas Salins in the second of the PK Car Sport Audi. It's interesting that Salins qualified so much better, but hasn't been able to replicate that pace in the race. Now have a look at the dive to the inside of Goulding. It's in the yellow nose car. Salins turns in. The two cars touch, fairly sizable whack, and I just wonder whether that's done a bit of geometry damage to Nicholas Salins' Audi, and that's why he's not been able to really fight back, because it was quite a big whack. When you look at it again in slow motion, you really appreciate just how hard that side-to-side contact was between the two cars. Downhill once more then. Rosenberger versus Salins as they turn into Pouhon. Gorini keeping Hassan at bay here. The Audi could not be closer on this part of the circuit, to the point where Henri Hassan is virtually looking now to go off the road to get past. So close is he. There's no gap coming for him. But by the end of the lap, I rather fear that the Porsche will be able to stretch its legs once more, as we saw a lap ago. Through the piff-paff, Hassan lines up to have a go, runs out of road on the outside, has to slot back in. Got on the dustier, dirtier part of the circuit as well there. And we have also now Leonardo Gorini being given another track limit warning. We've also got a second one for Stefan Rattel, who is in 11th spot. So the track limit warnings are coming. There's confirmation of the one for Gorini. And the more you get, the more draconian the penalties become. So the warnings are sort of acceptable. The intention there is to calm the driver down. But if they keep on transgressing, and the totting up process means the penalties will come. So the race leader is already out of the chicane, and with Filip Sladecka having done 5 laps, the margin that he has got over Peter Goulding is now over 12 seconds. As a little bit wide goes the Porsche. This is for, remember, 5th and 6th. Leonardo Gorini comes over the timing line. Again, the Formula 1 pit straight here has the start and finish lines in different places. And then you've also got the endurance start line, which is coming down the hill from here, the so-called heritage pits. So down through the approach to Eau Rouge they will come. The incident at the start has now been noted by the officials. The PK Car Sport twins making contact at La Source, so that's been noted by race control. As there you see Henri Hassan still only 3rd in class, and he's got to serve in the pit stops at 10 seconds in that car. So 10 seconds to be served by Henri Hassan. As there you've got Chris Rosenberger sharing with Sehi Salmini, still running in 3rd place, heading the AM category from Nicholas Salins. So that Audi trying to pick up its pace, but frustrated by having a KTM right there in the way. Downhill they turn once more. And to the inside line, look, Salins, but thought better of it. But out wide and through the gravel goes Rosenberger. That delays him just enough to give the momentum then to Nicholas Salins, who goes charging through on the inside line. Salins picks up the place. And Chris Rosenberger, who has done quite a bit of rallying in his days, goes back to his roots, but he loses a place. And so now released, let's see what Salins can do about catching Peter Goulding here before we get to the pit window. Nicholas Salins has been trying for lap after lap after lap to apply the pressure. Finally it works, forces a mistake out of the KTM, and up into 3rd he goes and starts to pull away, look. To the inside line, Henri Hassan has a look to try to get past there. Leonardo Gorini, but to no avail. The two of them still tied together. Fascinating to see the way that at certain parts of the circuit the Porsche has the advantage, at others it's advantage Audi. And as they sweep now out of the Cours Paul Frere, this from another angle is how it looked as Rosenberger ran wide coming out of Speaker's Corner, just hooking 2 wheels into the gravel, delays him enough to enable there Nicholas Salins to come charging by, pick up 3rd place. As again here, look, Gorini has got away from the Audi, so you've got dropping back now Henri Hassan, but he closes up under braking. That's all he can do at this part of the circuit. The leader goes through, so Sladecka is 13 seconds ahead of Goulding. Goulding to Salins is 3.4, and that time around Salins lapped 4/10 quicker than Peter Goulding did. So that battle is starting to become one to watch now that you've got the 2 teammate Audis, the right side, if you like, of the KTM of Chris Rosenberger. About 5 minutes before that window opens, as the fight here for 5th place between Leonardo Gorini and Henri Hassan drops downhill once again. Into Les Combes go the two Belgian team Audis. Now there is Chris Rosenberger fourth, behind him second and third in the AM, so it kind of puts him in sequence with the class opposition. Now the interest will be to see whether he drops away at all and is being caught by either the Porsche or the Audi that ran behind. Yet to get half distance, so Chris Rosenberger, who will share this car with Sethi Samini. He'll hand that over at the pit stop window. Leonardo Gorini behind goes all the way through. He's a soloist, and so also is Henri Hassan. So the AMP battle, again, is also going to be worth keeping an eye to, just to see how that all develops in the closing stages of the race here. Through Pouhon once more, comes number 11, then that is Nicolas Saylands. He runs third, sweeps out of Pouhon, and a final track limit warning coming the way now of Peter Gulinx, and that's at turn 4, which is coming out of Raidillon, heading up the hill. So Peter Gulinx now being warned about track limits, but it's the last warning. And after that, the penalties come. There is Saylands, who in the first sector of this lap lost a little bit of time. In the second sector, pulls back half a second. So yeah, he's got a lot of work to do. But equally, if Gulinx keeps putting the car in strife in terms of track limit observation, then it's going to make life easier for Saylands, because it could be that the car ahead is brought into the pit lane out of the way to serve a penalty. Out wide at Blanchimont, as long as you've got two wheels on the white line, you're just about okay with that. So Filip Sladecka, the race leader, 7 laps in the book, absolutely in a class of his own right now as the Audis squabble over second and third places. Kevin Weider down in 9th place. He's lost time again, in fact, in the Brabham. That makes the work of Anders Fjordbach a little bit harder, as there you've got Peter Gulinx, behind him Nicolas Saylands coming down towards La Source. That gap down to 2.5 seconds. 9/10 pulled back that time around by Nicolas Saylands, and Gulinx having been looked at for turn 1, no further investigation necessary. Just a racing incident there for, say, race control between those two cars, as once more down the hill comes the number 11 Audi. That's 81 ahead in second place, but Saylands third, still hustling on. But Filip Sladecka is just away and gone up the road. It's going to be probably only a major mechanical drama that's going to stop the car in its tracks, I would have thought, because Sladecka will give way to Stefan Rossina, who is a quick driver as well. Way up the curb there, clambers Nicolas Saylands coming into Les Combes, that rather unsettles the car. He rattles it through the right and the left and the right again, but you can see the commitment being put in by Saylands now. But these Audis just not looking quick enough to do anything at all about the KTM. It's not that they lost time early on, they've continued to lose time lap after lap after lap here. Chris Rosenberger hangs on to his class lead. To Pouhon then goes Saylands. And as the cars drop down towards Pif Paf once more, we're on lap 8 here in the first of the two Fanatec GT2 European Series races of the weekend. GT2, a category only in its second season, and continuing to deliver action for whether it's relatively inexperienced AMs or, for example, stalwart GT racers like Bert Langin, who will take over the second-placed car. And you can trace Bert Langin's racing lineage all the way back to FIA GT in the mid to late 1990s. This good battle going on here between Leonardo Gorini and Henri Hassan for second in the AM contest is certainly far from resolved. Gorini, another graduate of Lamborghini Super Trofeo. He raced in what was then called the Blancpain Endurance Series and came back into racing last year into GT2. Makes his way then now up towards the fast Blanchimont left-hander. Through he goes. And then down towards the chicane, up to the end of lap 8. Filip Sladecka has already done so, and the pit window will be opening imminently. So if you've got your slower driver in first, you want to use the opportunity to try to do the driver change early. And let's see whether this actually plays into the hands of any of the back marking cars to get the quicker driver in early. I'm just wondering about the Brabham, for example. Up towards the timing line then comes here Gorini and Hassan. Gianluca Giorgi comes next ahead of Klaus Angerhofer, and then Kevin Weider in the Brabham, waiting to see where that car is. I think it might be down the pit lane. I'm waiting to see the Brabham break the timing beam, and it is indeed in the pits, yes. So Kevin Weider, the first in to give way to Anders Fjordbach, and that's very, very good indeed. The way the car had track position relative to the pit window opening means that the Brabham can come in straight away, and that gives Fjordbach a little bit more time in the car against other drivers in the second stint of a comparable pace. So the Brabham should start to gain places here. Remember, it is 82 seconds, the pit stop. And the Brabham, which had a win at Misano in the first race, doesn't have to serve any extra time here. Others come for the pit lane, including Aurelius Rustica, to give way to Michael Vergers. That car's dropped a big chunk of time, and Stefan Rattel behind is in as well. So that means the only other one that's yet to come to the line is Michael Doppelmayr, who'd been dropping further and further and further away. But if they can get Elliot Earhart into that car nice and early, yes, that happens now. Doppelmayr is in. Earhart will be an absolute gun in that. So there's a lot to look for in the second stint. A safety car would certainly help to bunch them all up, as again Henri Hassan tries to find a way around the outside there, but to no avail. Porsche fends him off as they come to the pit path, and again Hassan tries the outside line. Full commitment this time, but he's going to run out of road, is he? Yes, he is. He's tried it before and it's failed. He gets on the dirty part of the racetrack. He hasn't quite got the drive through the corner. And so once more, Henri Hassan has to sit back in behind the 911. Porsche versus Audi then as they come up towards the Cours Paul Frère for the 9th time. Just 10 minutes for the pit window. And remember that these two cars can run at this pace all day long because they are solo entries, so you don't have to worry about a driver change at all. They will come in, they will do the pit stop, the mandatory stop, and blast back out again. So out of that fast left of Blanchimont, they come down towards the chicane. And as Fjordbach's just joined in, Michael Vergers has joined in, and we should get Luca Piri into number 88, and he is on track now as well. Gorini and Hassan stay out. Gulix and Salens come in. They pit at the same time. They might, in due course, have a little word about the first corner, but Peter Gulix then handing over to Bert Longchamp. Out he gets. Peter's only in, what, his 3rd season of racing, and then behind is the sister car, Nicolas Salens giving way to Longchamp Jr., Stinus Longchamp. So they go toe-to-toe, dad and lad. Down the pit road here comes the number 7 Porsche. That is Gianluca Giorgi's car. And his co-driver for the first time, sharing that car with him, is Alessandro Baccani. He did drive at Misano, but in the other car, but he teams up with Gianluca Giorgi this weekend. So Baccani, Italian GT racer, will get on board the Porsche as PK Carsport gets ready to send out its 2 charges, 81 after an extra 10 seconds in the pit lane. Sorry, 5 seconds, I should say, for 81, and 10 seconds for number 11. So there, Bert Longchamp steals back another 5 seconds over the sister car. Right, Stinus Longchamp is away now. There, number 7, which has had some water put into it, gets set to go. And the battle on track between Leonardo Gorini and Henri Hassan continues, with the Porsche having strengths and weaknesses like the Audi. The Audi looked very quick lap after lap here. We've seen, remember, Hassan challenge on the outside of Pif Paf in the past. Doesn't try it this time. He's close, doesn't commit to the outside line because he knows what's going to come. What he needs to do is get a good run out of this section of the circuit to try to pounce on the inside line, heading then down towards Campus. Now, of course, the pit stops have rather shuffled the order. So you've got Elliot Earhart out of sequence behind them, absolutely charging along. Earhart, one of the fastest drivers on the circuit regularly, but he's got to get through the traffic here because these two have yet to stop. He has stopped, so he's a lap down after the pit stop and Michael Doppelmayr's pace. And as Fjordbach is already doing absolute best in sectors in the Brabham, he was earlier into the Brabham than the other drivers were in the stint. And there, way out wide, goes Henri Hassan, getting in the way a little bit of Elliot Earhart, who now commits to the inside line and goes through. Earhart knows, as into the pit lane comes now Gorini and also Hassan, that all he can do is just do pole position style laps. He's going to push and push and push and push. Another track limit warning coming, and it's for number 5, Michael Vergers, now into the Audi that he's taken over from Aurelius Rustica. And so there is 911 coming in. There is 67 Audi in as well. So both of them come from the LP Racing Luca Piri stable, but different brands. And the two PK Carsport Audis, of course, now with the extra 5 seconds lost in the pits by Nicolas Salins, now the car driven by Stinus Longin, so that gap has widened once more. Sladecka, though, staying out, trying to build that gap for Stefan Rosina, the Slovakian, for later in the race. The GT2 RS Club Sport Porsche 911 there. And the former factory colours. Tyre pressure's checked. Out on track still, it is Sladecka that leads. Comes then now down through the right-hander of Campus. Grabs a gear, turns right into the Cours Paul Frère. And being released is Gorini. Remember that Henri Hassad has got to sit there for 10 seconds. So having failed to get past the Porsche initially, he's going to catch it first of all and then try and find a way by. Away he goes. Down to the chicane. Filip Sladecka up to the end of lap number 11. Can probably squeeze one more lap out of this before the team need to get worried about the stint length, but let's see whether he does that. Comes into the pits this time. Leader in. So Filip Sladecka down the pit lane. And the advantage he pulled was a monster of a gap. Chris Rosenberger second, has yet to stop, so could well be in, should well be in this time. But the quicker cars now are those lower down the order. The trouble is they've lost so much time, only really a safety car or a drama for this KTM will bring them back into the mix. So it looks good, this, for Sladecka. He and Rosina then, they've taken a victory this year, and the car comes into its pit box now. The win came in the first race at the Red Bull Ring, which was a safety car affected race, but there you've got the driver change being served, and also Chris Rosenberger's car is expected, hence the board being waved by the True Racing team. So Bert Longin here, now pressing on to try to bring down the gap. Bert knows his way around Spa oh so well. 24 Hours winner, Zolder 24 Hours winner. That very quirky bodywork on the KTM that lifts up and forward, out clambers Chris Rosenberger. And now into that car gets Seti Framini. And the team go to work to strap the driver in. Needs to be quite agile, quite supple to do all of that. But the KTMs, as I think I said at the start of the race, performance per pound, a really good way into GT2 racing. Away goes then. Now Stefan Rosina ready to leave the pit lane, but it's still a monster gap over this second place car that Bert Longin brings up to the exit of the chicane now with just under 22 minutes on the clock. There is the leader. So there's the length of the pit straight and a bit, really, between the top two cars. Longin goes through into La Source. Past the endurance pits, all those traditional grandstands and hospitality buildings on the outside of the circuit demolished over the winter to make way for the extension of the runoff area and a new landscaped area with a grandstand in it, and then a huge new facility built on the outside of Eau Rouge. Away now goes number 17 KTM. That is Klaus Angerhofer's car, into which has just got Hubert Trunkenpolz. So the former bike racer, Klaus Angerhofer, gives way to Hubert Trunkenpolz, who came out of the one-make Eastern European KTM Crossbow Battle, and now having a go at, as he did last year, endurance racing. Fastest lap of the race, Anders Fjordbach in the Brabham. But here's the rub. He's 2 minutes behind the leader. 2 minutes, that's how much time Weider was losing in the first stint, whereas one or two others, like Elie Earhart, even lost a lap, so he's got an insurmountable task ahead of him. But there is Bert Longin, whose last lap was a 2:28, and his son, Stinus Longin, behind him, a 2:25. So much quicker is junior than senior. This is Michael Vergers, he's 10th, coming up now towards the Les Combes right, left, right sequence. And Michael Vergers being given a second track limits warning. He was in the walls a little bit with the track limits at Misano, was he not? And comes into Bruxelles now, turns through the corner. You turn and then it tightens, you have to turn again. Further down the circuit, you've got here coming into the Pif Paf, Henri Haussade then now looking for a way past the KTM. So Haussade delayed after that long pit stop, trying to get himself back into the mix within the category here. Just up the road ahead is Sedi Samini. So the KTM presses on. Fastest lap of the race, still Fjordbach, and he's getting quicker again in sectors this time. Through Blanchimont, turns Henri Haussade. So the AM Championship leader, Henri, who has done a huge amount of racing since the early noughties when he started in Formula Renault. He's driven in Formula Ford, in touring cars, commits to the inside line, dives through on the inside then of Sedi Samini, goes through. So that should now put the Audi up into 6th place, I would offer you, as he comes up toward the line. It is then Stefano Rossina who leads the way, 16.5 seconds clear of Bert Langin. Stinus Langin is 3rd. This car 4th of Leonardo Guarini. 5th in the background is Anders Fjordbach. Now, when you start to get everybody else cycling through the pit stops, the gap 1st to 5th is 33 seconds, but with 18 minutes and change on the clock, I don't think that Fjordbach, quick as he is going to be able to bring all of that down, but he might be able to get into the top 3 outright. Let's see, because Fjordbach goes very, very well in this Brabham. It's been a bit of a baptism of fire for them, away from the tried and trusted Audi, but the high-class racing team has done a good job operating that car, and he comes then now out of Les Cons once more. Grabs a gear, comes over the brow. And again, that Brabham howls its way downhill. So Fjordbach is looking rapid, hustling on behind Guarini, but actually not as quick in the first sector as the Porsche on this lap. So the margin remains between the two of them. So we need to see a flying lap out of Stefano Rossina, which will come this time. Way out wide over the curb there was Guarini coming out of Pouhon. 17 minutes still on the clock here at Spa. Up through the piff-paff they turn. There's the Brabham, good through the corners, but you saw how it lost down going up the hill. That first sector dropped in a big chunk of time. This is where Fjordbach needs to try to stay on the tail of the Porsche, and he does, and in fact he commits to the move coming into the Paul Frere, but then the pace of the Porsche picks in, and it means that Guarini is able to carry himself back ahead. So it's going to have to be late braking into the chicane, I think, here by Fjordbach to have a real go. He's done the fastest lap of the race, but he's finding the Porsche now a tough nut to crack. Goes to the outside line, down to the chicane, brakes late, makes the move, goes through. So Fjordbach does now pick up 4th position. He's racing well, he's racing hard, no question about it. Turns over the timing line once more. Now the race lead gap, 16.4 seconds. Guarini being given a track limit warning at Blanchimont, and as far as Rossina is concerned, he is now 16.4 seconds ahead of Bert Langin, and last time around he was about a 10th quicker. So if Langin there is to do any closing, it's not going to be by much, I fear. Again, he's just taken 49 thousandths out in the first sector, but Stinus Langin is lapping quicker than his father still and bringing down that gap 5.3 seconds. He's taken another half a second out in the first sector of this lap. Downhill they come into Bruxelles. So Langin comes from Speaker's Corner down the hill. There in the background, Stinus Langin, the sister car. So he's taken it over from Nicolas Salins, and a new fastest lap of the race done by the man that is absolutely stone last. Elia Earhart has done a 2:23.5, so he's a minute and a half off the lead, but the quickest man on the road, number 18. So we saw the car briefly after the pit stops, but Elia Earhart now absolutely throwing caution to the wind. Alessandro Baccani here, taking over from Gianluca Giorgi, and Baccani is in 8th place. Baccani's next target is the KTM they can just see up the road of Sedi Samini, and the margin between those 2 seconds at the start of the lap. In the first sector, Bakkani 1.3 seconds quicker. So that place change should be on before the very end of the race here. Out of the right of Campus they come to call Paul Frere once more. And the KTM still looks to have the advantage, doesn't it, as they again accelerate their way now onto the approach to Blanchimont. So we're on lap 15, we've got 14 minutes to go, and the lead gap is 16 seconds. Anders Fjordbach still running 4th. Now, what's his lap time like relative? Yeah, he's lapping quicker than everybody ahead of him. He's done another fastest lap last time around in the Brabham. So Fjordbach still half a minute off the race lead, but he might be able to get himself up with the Steeners Longchamp Audi for 3rd place before the end here. Behind, you've still got this fight going on between Sedi Samini and Alessandro Bakkani. Samini comes down the hill, heads to Eau Rouge now. Rides the curb, makes the climb up Raidillon. Now there is Henri Hassan, who is now up to 2nd within the AM class. I'm slightly mystified as to exactly what happened for number 16 KTM, because it has fallen to 3rd in class, but it didn't have to serve any extra time in the pits. So a very slow pit stop for whatever reason from Chris Rosenberger giving way to Sedi Samini, and it's cost them the lead, it's cost them 2nd in the AMS. Car turns downhill once more. There behind is Bakkani, and the gap at the start of the lap was 1.6 seconds, so it's still advantage Porsche. It might not be a massive gain, corner by corner, sector by sector, but it is the quicker of the 2 cars, so the Porsche is certainly getting closer to the KTM. Bakkani catching Samini. We've now got Luca Piri being warned about track limits at Blanchimont. So the number 88 Audi has been attracting much attention from race control in this race. So there, going through, is Bakkani, sector by sector. A little bit of time is found. Anders Fjordbach has just gone across the line. He is still lapping quicker than anybody else ahead of him. Trouble is that they're not by massive amounts. So the lead gap still 29 seconds, 1st to 4th, but it's only 8 seconds now, just under 9, that Fjordbach has to try and make up against Steeners Longchamp. Big slide there from a hard-charging Michael Vergers as they come over the timing line. So Vergers, in turn, is taking absolutely massive chunks out of the car ahead of him. Bakkani's Porsche has just done a 2 minutes 30, and there Vergers a 2:24. So he is getting much, much, much closer now as that gap continues to tumble. Downhill they go once more. Now the climb out of Raidillon. 10 minutes and counting on the clock. Rosina still well clear in the lead of the race. Fjordbach piecing together another demon lap because he's done another absolute best in Sector 1 this time. Now there is Vergers, who is closing onto the back of Bakkani, and Bakkani is closing onto the back of Samini. So these 3, 7th, 8th and 9th, little by little, this battle is starting to shape up, isn't it? Up front, Stefan Rosina really just consolidates the advantage that he's got. He's way out front, but this battle is coming alive once more. Pro-Am car of Vergers catching the Am cars of Bakkani and Samini. But again, Aurelius Rustica, who did race here last year, they've switched from Porsche to Audi for this season, admittedly, but Rustica did seem to lose quite a big chunk of time in that first stint. Right, now he makes his move, does Vergers against the Porsche, round the outside, catapults the car out of Pouhon and goes through on the inside line, heading into the Piff Paff, and he's done it. Goes by on the inside line. Tick, 1 place gain for Vergers. Let's see how long it takes him to get onto terms with Sedi Samini now. Swoop their way out of Pouhon. And the run now once more onto Blanchimont, and you can see the way that Audi is absolutely gobbling up the road. So Vergers, personal best lap last time, had to make 2.3 seconds to Bakkani, which he's done. Then it was another 1.6 seconds to the KTM, which he has done. And he's ready to make that move as they drop into the chicane. And there, Samini, well, I was going to say, doesn't make it hard for him. He left the door wide open, then tried to defend, and still does defend coming out of the corner. Vergers is going to get him, I would have thought, on the run to La Source, but Samini maybe wasn't really aware of exactly where the Audi was, because there was a gaping gap on the inside line. Eventually Vergers does go by, picks up the place, so 2 places within a lap effectively then for Michael Vergers. He's gone through now into 7th place, heading into La Source. 8 minutes are on the clock right now. Another track limit warning, and it's a final one at Blanchimont now to be given to Bert Langin. Big twitch from Stinus Langin's Audi as he hustles the car into Pouhon. Goes through, gets away with that, but you can see the commitment that's being put in. He desperately wants to be ahead of Dad. Into Piff Paff they come. The margin between these two, 4.2 seconds last time. So even though Junior is lapping quicker than Senior, again, it's only by a few tenths, and it's not really been pieced together well enough to bring him back into the mix. To the ally, that gap is less again. And then this is the Brabham of Anders Fjordbach that runs in 4th. Now, even though the 2 Audis are closing on one another, this is the fastest car on the road. So Fjordbach is, I was suggesting earlier, maybe looking at a podium, and the Brabham Automotive Factory Racing effort comes now down towards the chicane, up towards the timing line. In the meantime will come the 2 Audis. You've got Stinus Langin now through, because Bert Langin is into the pit lane. Now, why is that? Bert Langin comes in, and it is a problem by the look of it. Or is it a stop-go for track limits? No, it's a puncture. So in has come Bert Langin, and that tyre looks okay, but he clearly felt something was not right, so it's a new tyre going on the car. And also in strife is a KTM, and that's going to park it. That's 16, isn't it? Which is the car of Sedi Samini. So 6 minutes on the clock, and suddenly the order starts to shuffle with 2 dramas in quick succession. So Rossina leads Stinus Langin by 20 seconds. Up to 3rd place now will go Anders Fjordbach. And number 16, KTM, stationary. Tries to perform a Control-Alt-Delete type reset and does get going again. So Samini rejoins. There is the leading car. Stefan Rossina still way out up front. And the team with Pirelli look at the state of the tyre. It's certainly well used, but didn't look as though it was punctured. So certainly Bert Langin felt that the car's balance wasn't quite right, and the only option, a quick 1 tyre change to get him back onto the road. 5.5 minutes are on the clock as there, down towards Pouhon once more goes Anders Fjordbach then. 3rd he runs, and he's 5 seconds, give or take, away from Stinus Langin. It's going to be close, this. How many more laps can they wring out of this, bearing in mind it's a 2:26. It's going to be 2 more laps, I would have thought, come the end of this lap. There is Stinus Langin then. So it is Audi versus Brabham for 2nd place in the race, and also 2nd within Pro-Am here. That distinctive engine note from the Audi as Stinus Langin grabs a gear, so he's inherited 2nd place with his father's problems, but can he hang on to it here? Fjordbach, fastest man on the circuit, best lap of the race to his credit. Less than 5 minutes to go. Stefan Rosina already over the timing line, long gone. Second and third down towards the chicane. Fjordbach absolutely on the limit here. Turns right, turns left. So the race has 4 minutes and a bit still to go. Need to see where the leader is when he crosses the line relative to the clock, really. Come the end of this 19th lap that they now start. So Rosina, Stinus Longin and Fjordbach is the order. There is Fjordbach. Quickly out of Eau Rouge, up Raidillon, rides the curb. Keeps it within the track limits that are prescribed and gets now onto the Kemmel Straight, but he's still only gained on that previous lap hundreds, really. So he's doing his best, but it's going to be a long slog, this. Out of the Les Combes sequence comes Stinus Longin. There is Anders Fjordbach. So he's still looking for a podium result, but can he now get second? In terms of top speeds on the Kemmel Straight, the Race Vision powered by AWS graphic shows the KTMs being fleet of foot. Chris Rosenberger and also Filip Sladecka doing 168.6 miles per hour. Alessandro Baccani's Porsche and Klaus Angerhofer's KTM 167.7. So that's heading up towards Les Combes. There's the Brabham once more, downhill. Into the left of Pouin, swings Fjordbach. And that's the car he's chasing. Now, where did Bert Longin rejoin? Down in 7th place, Bert Longin, currently. So he is therefore down to 5th in Pro-Am. And the other rather delayed car of Seti Samini has fallen to last place outright. So through they turn, and with only 2.5 minutes on the clock, a 2:27 is a flying lap, and waiting for Stefan Rosina to break the beam. And he just does so now. So this will be the last lap, I would predict. So Stefan Rosina goes through La Source, way out clear as he has been, or that car has been all race long, compared to here, second and third, Stinus Longin versus Anders Fjordbach. 3.3 seconds to make up in a lap for second place. I'm not convinced he's going to do it, but Fjordbach will give it a go, that is for certain. And then behind, fourth, there's Leonardo Gorini ahead of Henri Hassad. Now, they've been together pretty much race long, but now this is really serious because it is for the AM category lead. That's what they're squabbling over. Gorini a bit more wayward first up coming out of the chicane, but a different line also employed by Henri Hassad that takes him up to the curb. And then behind them, you've got the charging Michael Vergers, 6th overall, 4th in Pro-Am. These are the AM cars, remember. Into La Source they turn. Back onto the power goes Henri Hassad as he ploughs downhill once more, but doesn't matter what he's tried in this race, he has not been able to find an answer to that leading car. And I suspect it's going to be the same story right now. He can't find a way to wriggle past Leonardo Gorini, short of forcing a mistake out of him, and that hasn't come hitherto. Then it's going to be hard work, I would have thought, to take that place. So for the last time to the Les Combes sequence they come. There you've got 67 there, Henri Hassad, who is going to bank points. And if there is a cloud to the silver lining, it is that the points are only for third, but the silver lining is that he won't have to spend as much success penalty time in the pit stops next race. And that comes later on in the afternoon. So that is potentially one where he will score better. And over the course of the two races, it sort of balances out for him. Downhill once more goes the LP Racing Audi. Henri Hassad, he's raced in Porsche Carrera Cup France. He's raced in the Ferrari Challenge. He's a French GT champion, single-seater racer. We've seen him in the early days of the Endurance Cup in GT3 racing. He's a stalwart racer. But here, Stefan Rosina and his co-driver Filip Sladecka are on target for a second win of the year. They're going to win in Pro-Am. Filip Sladecka takes the checkered flag with Stefan Rosina bringing the car home and it is victory after 20 laps at Spa, whereas here the AM win could go to either Gorini, who does make a little bit of a mistake and go wide, and Jorge Hassad gets up the inside and on the last lap will go through. Goes through, picks up the place, and so Jorge Hassad goes through, takes up the position, takes over the AM lead, and he has worked for the best part of 50 minutes for all of that, and finally he has done it. So Jorge Hassad goes through, but this is where the Porsche can fight back. So Gorini might be able to make another dive coming into the chicane for the last time. Hassad, though, has cleared him, hasn't he? He's got the 3 lengths advantage or so that he needs. Down towards the chicane, Gorini has a look to the inside line, but only now as he gets to the clipping point is he close enough. The line is wrong, and as long as Hassad doesn't make a mistake on exit of the corner, he should be good for the category win, which he is. So Jorge Hassad comes through to win in the AM class for the 4th time this year. Leonardo Gorini behind him in 2nd place. So a race win for Stéphane Rossina and Philippe Stradecka, but the 2nd pit stop for Bert Langin under investigation. So the pit stop is being looked at. There is the winning car. Stéphane Rossina and Philippe Stradecka, they win from Stinus Langin and Nicolas Salins, and then 3rd, Anders Fjordbach and Kevin Weider. So there is a mandatory pit stop time as well for a tyre change, and it could well be that 81 Audi did not adhere to that. So we'll wait and see what comes for number 81. It crossed the line 7th. So a race win for Stéphane Rossina, who brought the car across the line, and Philippe Stradecka from Stinus Langin and Nicolas Salins, and then 3rd, Anders Fjordbach and Kevin Weider. Good recovery, that having lost ground early on. That's also the top 3 in Pro-Am, and then you get to the winning AM in 4th place, which was number 67 of Jorge Hassad, ahead of 911, 5th overall, Leonardo Gorini, and in 6th place, another good recovery, this number 5, Michael Vergers. Aurelius Rustica lost chunks of time early on, but Berg was able to bring that car back into the mix. So let's just confirm that result. It is a win for the 2nd time this year for Philippe Stradecka and Stéphane Rossina from Nicolas Salins and Stinus Langin. Kevin Weider and Anders Fjordbach taking 3rd for Jorge Hassad, the AM winner, and his runner-up Leonardo Gorini 5th. Michael Vergers and Aurelius Rustica 6th. Question mark, though, over the car that was 7th over the line, Bert Langin and Peter Gulinks. 8th home, we had number 18 of Michael Doppelmayr and Elia Earhart. Really good stint by Earhart to go ahead of the Porsche of Alessandro Baccani, started by Gianluca Giorgi. Stefan Rattel 10th with Luca Piri's assistance. 11th was the number 17 KTM of Klaus Angerhofer and Hubert Trunkenpolz. And then it was bringing up the rear, Chris Rosenberger and Seti Samini, after that car had to stop by the side of the road, do its restart and get going again. So doing, after a slow pit stop, cost itself any chance of an AM win, and I wonder whether the problem had started in the pits, which would account for why it made a slow stop, why the time was lost. Well, there is the winning KTM with the bodywork up and forward, and then wriggling through the cage comes Stéphane Rossina, and a very, very happy Philippe Stradecka wanders across to say well done. So a good result for the 2 of them. Philippe Stradecka and Stéphane Rossina, the 2 Slovakian drivers. Drops the bodywork down. In the background, the Audi arrives, the Stinus Langin and Nicolas Salins car. And then behind that should be the Brabham somewhere of Anders Fjordbach and of Kevin Weider. The winning AM cars are there as well. Drivers go to be weighed because there is the driver weight, the car weight, and the combined weight all to be taken into the regulations. So very happy Stéphane Rossina. Anders Fjordbach, 3rd for high-class racing there in the Brabham number 1. Fastest lap of the race, so that car showing its potential all the time. And another very, very good drive by Jorge Hassad. He worked so hard for that. For the bulk of the 50 minutes, he was stuck behind the Porsche and finally was able to go through.
Good job, good job.
Good job for Jorge Hassad, talking about doing it without brakes. And there the winning KTM drivers celebrate. Winners' Pirelli caps are handed across to them. They jump down from the car. Oh, jump back up for more photographs. And then eventually they will go to the podium. So a very, very happy team. But that KTM's pace was just relentless all the way through, wasn't it? It wasn't just that it did one good stint out of the two. Both stints were demonstrably quicker than anybody else's. Anders Fjordbak, who's chased hard in the Brabham, has to accept defeat, but congratulates the winners. And already in civvies, so there is Stefan Rattel with the black polo shirt, talking to Kevin Weider. So let's have a look at the best bits of that race, which began with the two PK Car Sport Audis making contact with one another heading into La Source. As they swung into the corner, that was enough to give Peter Gulinx the opening on the inside line, but although that would be the better placed car for the bulk of the race, ultimately a second pit stop went against it. It took the opening stint of Nicholas Salins a long time before it could really give him third place, and that was largely because he forced a mistake out of Chris Rosenberger. That car ran wide, coming out of Speaker's Corner and through. Finally went the Audi, and once clear, so Salins was able to pull away. When the pit window opened, the first car in was Kevin Weider's Brabham to give way to Anders Fjordbak. Others quickly followed suit, and Michael Vergers was doing a great job hammering around the outside there of the Porsche to go ahead of Alessandro Baccani, coming from Pouhon down to the pit path. Vergers then disposed easily of the Sedi Simony-driven KTM, which would then have its own problems, that car having to park by the side of the road just briefly. Langevin was looking secure in second place, but then not for long, because a tyre drama brought him into the pit lane. A new left rear went on the car, but there's a question mark as to whether or not the number 81 Audi served the regulation pit stop time for a tyre change. So that meant that the best battle to look for was in AM, and it was this tiny little mistake by Gorini that went a little bit too deep and allowed through on the inside line Henri Hassad to take the AM category win. Stefan Rosina and Filip Sladecka won race one of Fanatec GT2 European Series at Spa. So the drivers making their way to the podium, where the drivers for Pro-Am and AM will be saluted. We wanted a very busy race weekend at Spa with Fanatec GT2 European Series, with Intelligent Money British GT, with the FFSA French GT Championship and the French Touring Car Series, plus single-seater racing from the British-based GB3 Championship. So the track is not still for very long. That's the shot looking down from the new grandstand on the outside of Eau Rouge. You can see how different that section of the circuit looks. All those traditional old grandstands and buildings gone. The reprofiled area on the outside to give a bit more runoff area. And I'm glad that a grandstand has been put back in there to allow the fans to see La Source and all the way down through the bottom of the hill to Eau Rouge. But still, for the 24 hours next weekend, they can have a good view of what goes on in the pit lane as well, because another monster entry means that both pit lanes combined will have to be used. So, smiles all round. Bottles of water for hot drivers. And there's Stefan Rosina on the left with the cap, and Filip Sladecka alongside him, await to be called forward. Kevin Weider, the Brabham driver there, set for a podium. Stinus Langevin says well done, and Elliot Earhart, I should say, and Michael Doppelmayr there, because they are the third of the AMs.
Yeah, I think nothing compared to me, but yes, some pressure.
No, we had a little bit of fight, and then you go in the pitter. You go in the pitter in this lap. I think so. No, you got in the pit in the same lap or not?
Yeah, we got
Elliot Earhart having certainly enjoyed his race, talking about it with Leonardo Gorini, who reflects on the battle and the pressure that he had from Henri Hassad. So Elliot Earhart with Michael Doppelmayr there, taking the podium in class. Right, so drivers are ready. Podium is ready. Now we'll see whether it's going to be the Pro-Ams or the AMs that are called forward first at the end of this 7th race of the season in the Fanatec GT2 European Series.
Yeah, I had 25 high or 26 low.
26 low.
Like 26, it was
We are struggling, you know.
the tires.
So the SRO officials, I think, are just about ready. So yes, the drivers are now called forward with Kevin Weider and Anders Fjordbach stepping forward. Anders, who's done a lot of his racing in America in recent years, as well as in Europe. Out for second place come Stinus Longin and Nicolas Seilens. And race winners are Stefan Rosina and Filip Sladecka, the KTM drivers, for the top step of the podium. So well done to Filip Sladecka and Stefan Rosina. The true racing drivers take then the top step of the podium from Nicolas Seilens and Stinus Longin, Kevin Weider and Anders Fjordbach third, getting their Spa-shaped trophies. Then for the PK Carsport team from Pirelli, trophies presented. And then the top step for the KTM drivers' second win of the year, Stefan Rosina, who was a rapid Porsche Super Cup racer a good few years ago, and Filip Sladecka. Good to have them back in sort of high-profile GT racing once more, and two very happy drivers. In fact, smiles all round on the podium. Even those that didn't win have had good recoveries after delays earlier on. So the first of the two podiums done. Race 2 will come up at the end of the day at 5 o'clock local time. But for now, the winning drivers from Pro-Am hold trophies aloft and celebrate. And even though they need the overalls for later on, there is the thought of champagne to be sprayed. And they're going to do it, I think. After a hot, hard stint in the car, the champagne is indeed sprayed. They might smell for the second race in wet overalls, but they're prepared to go through this. Kevin Weider joins in the background, and Nicolas Seilens and Stinus Longin there try and flee, but there's nowhere to go. So there the Pro-Ams leave the podium, and the AMs will be there in a moment then. Again, the top three. So it is going to be for third place, Michael Doppelmayr and Eli Earhart, who step forward now for the third step on the podium. Michael Doppelmayr, a happy man with that result, be on the podium. For second place, Leonardo Guarini, one of the two soloists, and another soloist is the class winner on that last lap, Henri Hassad, after a great battle with Leonardo Guarini. He prevails with less than half a lap to go. Well done for Henri Hassad as the class winner. He wins in AM for the fourth time this year. A really good drive, and after that fierce fight, takes the class win right at the very end. So Henri Hassad will get his trophy in a moment. Eli Earhart and Michael Doppelmayr receive theirs. Leonardo Guarini, despite losing out, still all smiles. And now also there was the trophy to be given for Henri Hassad in a moment as well for win number 4. He's won outright this year, but racking up the wins and the points, therefore, within the class as well. So, race 2 coming up at 5 o'clock from Spa-Francorchamps. It should be another lively race as we have Henri Hassad on the top step of the podium. It's a grid based on a separate qualifying session, separate start driver, and so that to come at the end of the afternoon. And we'll see whether or not it's going to be another victory for Henri Haussade. Another victory maybe even for the KTM. We'll see you later on for race 2 here at Spa. Bye for now.